Hello and welcome back. This week I'd like to talk about something that I've tried to avoid as a DM but have just recently begun experimenting with. Random encounters. In the past, I've practically always had my players level up through a plot-based milestone system instead of using experience points. Even when I did use experience in the past, I've always had my players level up automatically at certain points in the plot anyways. In my most recent campaign, I've resolved to use only experience points and never use any milestones as an excuse to automatically level a player up. In this respect, I've come to realize how important random encounters are for gaining experience points and how they can be manipulated to actually drive the plot forward. I've never actually liked using random encounters because I believed firmly in the philosophy of Chekhov's gun. That being, no element of the story is unnecessary, and that every element of the story that is mentioned in some capacity should only exist in service to the plot. Random encounters constantly came into conflict with this philosophy because by their very nature they tend to do very little to drive the plot. I found a surprisingly easy way around this because of the nature of my current campaign. I'm running my players through a heavily modified version of Out of the Abyss, a campaign whose early chapters simply involve the players surviving in the Underdark, and naturally encountering a few things along the way that would want to eat them. But I still felt like purely random encounters were still lacking any coherence. Other than gaining the players' XP, randomly running into a pack of creatures that would naturally be in the Underdark and want to attack a group of people does virtually nothing to prepare the players for what they might come face to face with by the end of the campaign. In that respect, I quickly began to move away from truly random encounters and replace them with semi-random encounters. These encounters feel random to the players, but they differ from truly random encounters in a few very important ways. Firstly, I know what monsters are going to be present in each and every encounter. This allows me to present more unique challenges to my players rather than just pitting them against another horde of goblins or kobolds or balors. Semi-random encounters also allow me to pit my players against more interesting enemies than simple groups of faceless mooks, and to use these unique enemies to foreshadow exactly what the players will find themselves up against in future sessions. Using semi-random encounters allows me as a DM to keep our sessions more focused and related to an overarching plot. It also keeps my players more engaged, as combat is one of the things in D&D that usually requires a lot of attention from characters who don't otherwise shine in less violent situations. But this brings me to the last thing I never really enjoyed about random encounters. They are incredibly time-consuming. Even if a random encounter doesn't throw the characters immediately into combat, it's going to take up a significant amount of time in your session. This doesn't matter so much for groups that can get together often, but for groups that can only manage to play D&D once or twice a month, having an entire session where you didn't do much other than destroy a goblin fortress that you happened across can feel like a bit of a waste. The barbarian probably loved that session, but the non-combat bard probably didn't. If it suits your table to spend an entire session slaying goblins with little to no plot, then by all means continue to do so. If you're more like me and would rather your players have a reason to be cleansing the countryside of every foul beast they come across, then here are a couple bits of advice I have for you. When designing semi-random encounters, ask yourself one simple question: how does this relate to the plot? If you plan on your players felling the king of all goblins by the end of the campaign, then go ahead and throw as many goblins at them as your heart desires. If you'd rather have your players questioning their own sanity by the time everything is said and done, send creatures that will either drive the party mad or destroy the bounds of reality. But of course, you have to remember that semi-random encounters are just like any other combat encounter. As such, you'll need to balance them to be a more appropriate challenge for your party. You also have more control over how much XP your players get and what kind of treasure they receive. You can also have certain encounters or treasure hoards tailor-made to fit the party and the plot and actually be able to justify it within said plot. This is practically always well received by players. But that's going to be it for my take this week. And until next time, I have been Mystic, and this was my perspective on random encounters.